In this video, we're going to be looking at solving rational equations of various kinds. In our first few examples, we're going to be looking at rational equations that have just one thing in the denominator, which will be the variable. Okay, so on these, when you see something like this where the variable is down there in the bottom, it's being divided, or it's dividing something, right? Then you'll just do the opposite of dividing and you'll multiply. So in this first one, we have -6 equals -3 over v. We'll multiply both sides by v. Okay, so when you're dividing by v and multiplying by v, that'll make them reduce. Okay, but we need to do it to the other side as well because this is an equation. We need to keep it that way. Okay, so we get -6v on the left, and then on the right, since the v's are gone, all that's left is the -3. Okay, now that we've got all the fractions gone, we can get rid of the -6 that's touching the v. So I'll divide it since it was being multiplied. That'll make this cancel, leaving just a v. And then we've got -3 over -6. Keep in mind that a negative divided by negative is a positive. Okay, so that would be 3 over 6. And then 3 divided by 6 is the same thing as 1/2. You can think of it in terms of dividing a 3 into both. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Okay, let's look at the next problem. So this one, we've got the y on bottom, so I will multiply both sides by y, which will make it cancel. Okay, and then I'll do it over here as well. So that gives me -9 equals 6y. Okay, now I need to get rid of that 6, so I will divide by 6. So that gives me y over here. And then -9 divided by 6, it's going to stay negative, but are they divisible? Are they both divisible by something? Maybe a 3? So if I divide 3 into 9, it goes in there 3 times. And if I divide 3 into 6, it goes in there 2 times. So we get y is equal to -3 over 2. Okay, we got this last one over here. It's got 2 over u is equal to 7. So I multiply by u on both sides. It'll make that cancel. And that gives me 2, because the u's are gone, equals 7u. Now that I've got rid of the fractions, I can get rid of the 7 by dividing it, which will make it cancel. Do it to the other side. And we get 2 over 7 is equal to u. Keep in mind that's the same thing as u equals 2 over 7. Okay, on these we've got more than just one variable sitting in the denominator. Now we've got the variable and a number sitting in the denominator. But we're still going to do the problem in the same way as before. So we look at this one and we've got -5 over x minus 6 equals 6. I need to get rid of the denominator, so I'll just multiply this thing by x minus 6 on both sides. Okay, so that would mean that this x minus 6 and this x minus 6 cancel. The -5 is still left there, equals, and then I can distribute this, so I get 6x minus 36. Okay, so I still need to get x by itself, so remember to get rid of the thing that's not touching it first. So there's a 36, do the opposite, so add a 36. 36 minus 5 is 31. Okay, and then I'll get rid of the thing that is touching the x, which is a 6, so I'll divide it since it's being multiplied. And we get 31 over 6 equals x. Okay, this next one, we got 7 equals 8 over w minus 6. I'm going to multiply by w minus 6 because it'll make those two things cancel. But I need to do it over here as well. Okay, so on the right side, we just get an 8. On the left side, let's go ahead and distribute this 7 to this parentheses. Okay, so that'll give me 7w minus 7 times -6 is -42. Okay, now I need to get the w by itself, so get rid of the thing that's not touching it first. That's this -42, so I'll do the opposite. And I'll do it to both sides. So we get 7w equals 50. Then get rid of the thing that is touching it, which is the 7, so I'll do the opposite, which is divide. Okay, so I get w is equal to 50 over 7. Neither one of these can be reduced because nothing that goes into the bottom also goes into the top other than 1. Okay, last one. This one has a v minus 7 in the denominator, so I will multiply by v minus 7, which will, of course, make them cancel. And then let's put a parentheses around that. V minus 7. Okay, so cancels over here. Let's distribute here. Remember, that is a negative 3 that we're distributing. So negative 3 to the v is negative 3v. Negative 3 to the negative 7 multiplies to become positive 21. Negative times a negative. Equals, well, if this stuff is gone, what's left? The negative and the 1. Negative 1. Okay, now we need to get the v by itself, so I will get rid of the 21. So subtract it. That is negative 3v. This cancels. Those are both negative, so add them and keep the sign, so negative 22. And now get rid of the thing that's touching the v, so I'll divide by negative 3, do the opposite. Negative divided by negative is a positive, but otherwise these two things don't reduce, so it's positive 22 over 3. Okay, so here's the last one of these solving rational equations. So we're going to have multiple fractions, sometimes with different things in the denominator. Okay, so looking at this first one, we look at the denominators, they're both x. Okay, so I know I can multiply by x on these, and it will make the x on bottom cancel. But remember, if you do it to one thing, you have to do it to everything. So I'll multiply this by x, and this by x, and this by x. All three things that are in this equation get multiplied by x. This cancels, this cancels, this just stays a 2x. So we get 3 equals 9 plus 2x. So now we only have one variable and no fractions. Get rid of the thing that's not touching the x. It's this, so I'll subtract the 9. 3 minus 9 is negative 6. And on the right, we get a 2x. Divide by the 2. And we get negative 3 is equal to x. Okay. On this one, we look at the denominator. We have a 3 and we have a z. So this one, we're going to have to multiply by more than just one thing. We need to multiply by a 3 and a z every term. Okay. So I'll multiply this one by 3z, this one by 3z, and this one by 3z. Okay, now looking at this first one, the 3 cancels because it's on top and bottom. Nothing happens to the z, and nothing happens to the 5. So that first one becomes z times 5, which is 5z. Equals, here, the z cancels because it's on top and bottom. But the 3, nothing happens to it. So we leave the 3 and the 4. That's 3 times 4, which is 12. Okay, and then on this last one, negative 1 times 3z, nothing cancels, so you just get negative 3z. Now we've gotten rid of the fractions, but we need to get all the variables on the same side. So I'm going to move these variables over here, do the opposite of a minus 3z, which is a plus 3z. Okay, so that will give me 8z over here. This one cancels, equals 12. Okay, and if I divide by 8 on both sides, that gives me z is equal to 12 over 8 reduces. 4 goes into both. So 4 goes into 12 3 times, and 4 goes into 8 2 times. So we get our answer of 3 over 2. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and do these last two here. So on this one, we have a 3 and a y in the denominator. So every term gets multiplied by 3y. There's a 3y, there's a 3y, and there's a 3y. Okay, so on this first one, nothing reduces, so it'll just be 2 times 3 and then keep the y, so 6y. Here, the 3's cancel because they're on top and bottom, so you're left with a 2y. And here the y's cancel, so it'll be negative 5 times 3, which is negative 15. Okay. Now we need to combine combine all the y's to one side, so I'll subtract these two y's over. That gives me 4y is equal to negative 15. One more step is to get rid of the 4, so I divide. And that gives me y is equal to negative 15 divided by 4. Doesn't reduce, so there we go. Negative 15 divided by 4. Okay, in this one, we have a c and a 5. That's down there. So I'm going to multiply each term by a 5c. Got it. So multiply by 5c times 5c and times 5c. Okay, so on this one, 5c times 2, 10c. Okay, on this one, the c's cancel. You still get 6 times 5, so 30. Equals, here the 5 cancels, but the c stays, and the 7, so 7c. Okay. Now I am going to move the c's over here and the numbers over there. So I will subtract 7c from both sides. And that will give me, let's see, 10 minus 7 is 3. So 3c plus 30 equals, well, everything's gone over there, so 0. Now I can move the 30 over, minus 30. So I get 3c equals negative 30. And then finally I can divide by this 3. So I get c equals negative 30 divided by 3, negative 10.